The United Kingdom has long been an economic powerhouse, celebrated for its historical influence, industrial innovations, and financial leadership. From the era of the Industrial Revolution to its standing as a global financial hub, the UK has shaped and been shaped by the global economy. However, the present-day narrative suggests growing economic vulnerabilities. The backbone of the UK's economy comprises key sectors such as finance, technology, manufacturing, and services. London, a critical node in global finance, contributes significantly to the UK's GDP. However, reliance on finance comes with risks, particularly when global shocks occur. This overview begins with a historical look and moves into how events like Brexit and COVID-19 have amplified existing vulnerabilities. In recent decades, the UK's economy has experienced significant turning points. The financial crisis of 2008 was a critical juncture, exposing weaknesses in the financial sector. Recovery was slow, and austerity policies introduced during this period further strained public services. The 2016 Brexit referendum marked another defining moment. The decision to leave the EU disrupted trade relationships, introduced tariff barriers, and created uncertainty in the business environment. Over 6 years later, its economic consequences continue to unfold, including labor shortages in critical sectors like healthcare, agriculture, and construction. Adding to this complexity, the COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges. Lockdowns, supply chain disruptions, and a massive increase in public borrowing have left long-term scars on the economy. The post-pandemic recovery has been uneven, with inflationary pressures eroding household incomes and increasing public discontent. To understand why the UK's economy is perceived as on the brink, we turn to key metrics like GDP, inflation, and debt-to-GDP ratio. For instance, public debt recently surpassed 100% of GDP, prompting concerns over sustainability. Inflation, driven by rising energy costs and global supply chain issues, has reached levels not seen in decades. Anecdotes from households and businesses struggling to cope with these pressures underscore the human impact of these economic challenges. Government policies have also been a point of contention. Tax cuts aimed at stimulating growth have been criticized for disproportionately benefiting higher-income groups while doing little to address systemic issues like income inequality. At the same time, cuts to public spending have strained critical sectors, particularly healthcare and education. One of the most controversial policy areas has been immigration. Post-Brexit immigration restrictions have exacerbated labor shortages, particularly in sectors reliant on EU workers. This has not only reduced productivity but also placed additional strain on industries already grappling with economic headwinds. The UK's fiscal policy framework has undergone significant changes over the past decade. Successive governments have struggled to balance the competing priorities of reducing the national debt, funding public services, and stimulating economic growth. This analysis examines the key fiscal decisions that have shaped the current economic landscape. One major area of focus is taxation. Corporate tax rates have been reduced in an attempt to attract foreign investment, but this has often come at the expense of government revenue. Meanwhile, increases in personal taxation have placed additional burdens on middle and lower-income households, exacerbating income inequality. Case studies of specific tax reforms highlight the trade-offs involved in these decisions. The Bank of England, BOE, has played a central role in navigating the UK through economic crises. Its use of quantitative easing during the 2008 financial crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic provided much-needed liquidity but also contributed to long-term challenges such as asset price inflation. Recent monetary tightening aimed at controlling inflation has introduced new risks. Higher interest rates have increased borrowing costs for households and businesses, dampening consumer spending and investment. Interviews with small business owners illustrate the ripple effects of these policies on the real economy. The UK has struggled with low productivity growth for over a decade. Despite significant technological advancements, output per worker remains below that of major competitors like Germany and the US. This section explores the reasons behind this stagnation, including underinvestment in infrastructure, skills gaps, and outdated business practices. Labor market dynamics have also shifted dramatically post-Brexit. The loss of EU workers has created shortages in key sectors, from agriculture to healthcare. This has not only reduced economic output, but also placed additional strain on existing workers, leading to higher burnout rates and lower job satisfaction. Addressing income inequality is critical to ensuring a sustainable economic recovery. This section provides a step-by-step breakdown of how policies like progressive taxation and targeted welfare programs could help reduce disparities. Examples from other countries, such as Sweden's approach to social welfare, offer valuable lessons for the UK. Poverty remains a significant challenge, particularly among children and the elderly. Families struggling to make ends meet highlight the urgent need for reform. The analysis concludes with recommendations for improving housing affordability and access to essential services. The global economy has undergone seismic shifts over the past 2 decades, and the UK has not been immune to these changes. The rise of emerging markets, technological advancements, and shifting trade dynamics have all created challenges for the UK's position in the global economy. This section explores these trends and their implications. One significant challenge is globalization. While globalization has opened new markets for UK businesses, it has also intensified competition. Manufacturing industries, in particular, have struggled to compete with low-cost producers in Asia. The offshoring of production has contributed to the decline of traditional industries and the loss of skilled jobs. Another key trend is the growing importance of technology and innovation. Countries that invest heavily in research and development, R&D, have gained a competitive edge in sectors such as artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and biotechnology. While the UK has made progress in some of these areas, underinvestment in R&D remains a barrier to achieving sustained growth. The decision to leave the European Union has had far-reaching consequences for the UK economy. Trade relationships with EU member states, which once accounted for nearly half of the UK's exports, have been significantly disrupted. Tariff barriers, customs delays, and regulatory divergence have increased costs for businesses and reduced competitiveness. The impact on foreign direct investment, FDI, has also been significant. Prior to Brexit, the UK was a leading destination for FDI in Europe, attracting companies looking to access the EU's single market. However, the uncertainty surrounding Brexit negotiations and the eventual loss of single market access have deterred investors. This has been particularly evident in sectors such as automotive manufacturing, where companies have relocated operations to EU countries. Labor market dynamics have also been affected. The end of free movement between the UK and the EU has created shortages of skilled and unskilled labor in sectors such as healthcare, agriculture, and hospitality. These shortages have not only reduced productivity but also increased costs for businesses reliant on EU workers. Rising energy costs have emerged as a critical challenge for the UK economy. The country's reliance on imported energy makes it vulnerable to global price fluctuations. The Russia-Ukraine conflict, in particular, has exacerbated energy shortages and driven up prices. The government currently faces rising debt service costs as interest rates climb. With rates now hovering around 4.83%, there is mounting concern that government borrowing will become unsustainable unless countered by significant economic growth. Historically, this rate was manageable, but in today's context of slow growth and elevated public debt levels, it has become a substantial burden. This creates a feedback loop of needing to borrow more to cover existing debt, while inflation offers a double-edged sword, increasing GDP nominally but eroding purchasing power. The UK's commitment to achieving net zero emissions by 2050 presents both opportunities and challenges. Transitioning to a green economy requires significant investment in renewable energy, sustainable infrastructure, and low-carbon technologies. While these investments have the potential to drive economic growth and job creation, they also come with substantial upfront costs. Extreme weather events linked to climate change pose additional risks. Flooding, heat waves, and other climate-related disasters have disrupted infrastructure and economic activity. Building resilience to these events is essential to safeguarding the UK's long-term economic stability. How market perceptions of rising UK government debt levels have triggered concerns over long-term financial stability. For example, recent hikes in government bond rates, gilts, above 4.8% have made borrowing increasingly expensive, fueling speculation about austerity measures similar to the post-2008 era. Comparatively, countries like Italy maintain slightly lower rates despite having their own structural vulnerabilities, underscoring unique risks faced by the UK. Other examples include labor shortages in agriculture and healthcare due to tighter immigration policies post-Brexit, leading to increased costs for businesses and stretched public services. This culminates in wider political instability as public dissatisfaction rises. Combined with historical context, like how post-pandemic fiscal mismanagement exacerbated inequality, these case studies illustrate the broader systemic challenges facing the UK today. The rising debt levels and mounting interest payments on government borrowing have created significant challenges for the UK's public sector. The strain on critical services, such as the National Health Service, NHS, has been exacerbated by years of underfunding and austerity. This section examines the intersection of fiscal pressures and public service performance. The NHS, often regarded as a cornerstone of British society, has faced unprecedented challenges in recent years. From long patient wait times to staff shortages, the system is struggling to meet growing demand. Much of this can be traced back to cuts in government spending during the austerity years. As borrowing costs rise, the government faces difficult decisions about where to allocate resources, often at the expense of healthcare, education, and social welfare programs. Another significant economic consequence of the UK's financial struggles is the ongoing housing crisis. Skyrocketing property prices and stagnant wage growth have left many unable to afford housing, particularly in major cities like London. Rising interest rates have also made mortgages more expensive, further squeezing household budgets. Regional inequalities exacerbate these issues, with some areas thriving while others fall further behind. The North-South divide, a long-standing issue in UK economic policy, remains a significant challenge. Investment in infrastructure and job creation has been disproportionately concentrated in the South, leaving other regions struggling to attract economic opportunities. As financial pressures mount, political instability and social unrest have become more pronounced. Public dissatisfaction with economic policies has led to widespread protests and strikes. Workers across various sectors, including railways, healthcare, and education, have organized industrial actions to demand better pay and working conditions. These movements underscore the growing frustration among citizens over the perceived mishandling of economic challenges. The political landscape has also been characterized by instability, with frequent changes in leadership and policy direction. This unpredictability has made it difficult to implement long-term economic strategies, further compounding the UK's financial woes. The concept of a debt spiral, where rising borrowing costs lead to more borrowing, poses a significant risk to the UK's economic stability. As government debt continues to grow, the cost of servicing that debt increases, leaving less room for public investment. This vicious cycle can lead to a loss of investor confidence, higher interest rates, and ultimately, a sovereign debt crisis. A key driver of this risk is the UK's exposure to global financial markets. UK's borrowing costs are higher than those of many other European countries, making it particularly vulnerable to shifts in market sentiment. If investors perceive the UK as a risky borrower, they may demand even higher returns, further exacerbating the debt spiral. Inflation, while offering some nominal growth to GDP, has placed immense pressure on consumers. Rising energy bills, food costs, and mortgage payments have eroded disposable incomes, pushing many households to the brink of financial hardship. The government's efforts to curb inflation through monetary tightening have had limited success, as global supply chain disruptions and geopolitical tensions continue to drive up prices. While the UK's economic challenges are unique in many ways, there are valuable lessons to be learned from other countries. For example, Germany's emphasis on industrial policy and vocational training has helped maintain a competitive edge in manufacturing. Similarly, Sweden's approach to social welfare and progressive taxation offers insights into how to reduce inequality while maintaining economic growth. Comparing the UK's borrowing costs to those of other European nations highlights the need for structural reforms. Countries like Italy, despite their own challenges, have managed to keep borrowing costs lower by maintaining investor confidence through fiscal discipline and targeted investment. The economic consequences facing the UK are a stark reminder of the importance of prudent fiscal management and long-term planning. Addressing these challenges will require a multifaceted approach, including reforms in taxation, public spending, and economic policy. By learning from international examples and prioritizing investments in critical sectors, the UK can begin to rebuild its economic resilience and restore public confidence. To address the immediate challenges, the UK government must implement a series of bold fiscal and monetary policies. These include 1. Reducing debt service costs. The government should negotiate longer-term debt agreements to mitigate the impact of rising interest rates. By restructuring debt into longer maturities, the pressure of short-term repayments can be eased. 2. Progressive tax reforms. Increasing taxes on wealthier individuals and multinational corporations can provide much-needed revenue while reducing the reliance on borrowing. Lessons from countries like Sweden demonstrate how progressive taxation can support economic stability. 3. Targeted spending on public services. Despite fiscal constraints, investment in critical sectors such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure must be prioritized to stimulate growth and ensure social stability. This targeted spending should focus on improving efficiency and addressing regional disparities. To achieve sustainable growth, the UK must address structural inefficiencies and invest in areas that promise long-term returns. 1. Promoting innovation and R&D. Increased funding for research and development, particularly in sectors like renewable energy and technology, can drive productivity gains and global competitiveness. 2. Supporting SMEs. Small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, are the backbone of the UK economy. Providing low-interest loans, tax incentives, and mentorship programs can help these businesses thrive and create jobs. 3. Green economy initiatives. Transitioning to a green economy can open new avenues for growth while addressing climate change. Investments in renewable energy projects, sustainable agriculture, and electric vehicle infrastructure should be prioritized. Brexit has left the UK isolated from its largest trading partner, the EU. Rebuilding these relationships is essential for long-term economic stability. Proposed steps include 1. Negotiating trade agreements. Establishing favorable trade deals with the EU and other major economies can restore market access for UK businesses. 2. Strengthening Commonwealth ties. Leveraging historical ties with Commonwealth nations can open up new trade opportunities, particularly in emerging markets. 3. Improving export competitiveness. By reducing trade barriers and investing in high-value industries, the UK can improve its export performance. Reducing income inequality is critical for social cohesion and economic resilience. Key measures include 1. Expanding social safety nets. Increasing support for low-income families through welfare programs, affordable housing initiatives, and childcare subsidies can alleviate financial pressures. 2. Raising the minimum wage. Adjusting the minimum wage to match inflation and cost of living increases ensures that workers can maintain a decent standard of living. 3. Enhancing access to education. Investing in education and vocational training programs can equip the workforce with skills needed for high-growth industries. Maintaining investor confidence is critical to preventing a debt spiral. Proposed strategies include 1. Fiscal responsibility. Adhering to clear fiscal rules, such as stabilizing debt-to-GDP ratios, can reassure financial markets. 2. Transparency in policy. Clear communication of economic policies and objectives reduces uncertainty and builds trust with investors. 3. Collaboration with the Bank of England. Coordinating monetary and fiscal policies ensures that inflation, interest rates, and economic growth are aligned. The UK faces significant economic challenges, but with decisive action and long-term planning, it can chart a path to recovery. By addressing structural weaknesses, investing in critical sectors, and prioritizing social equity, the government can rebuild public confidence and restore economic stability. Collaboration between policymakers, businesses, and citizens will be essential in achieving these goals. The lessons learned from this period of economic turmoil can pave the way for a more resilient and inclusive future.